The main point of the Ontario budget that was introduced last week was to keep the Liberal Party in power longer. And they're going to hope to achieve this through adopting many of the social programs that are the favorites of the NDP. Other than that, the major emphasis was on infrastructure projects and capital spending. And I suspect that over the next several years, much of the debate is going to be about where we find the financing for the huge amount of spending that Metrolinx is proposing. And this will come in the form of higher tolls and higher fares or property tax increases, that sort of thing. In fact, it's interesting. It seems to be the case that the transit file has pretty much hijacked the agenda at the provincial and the municipal level. And I would suggest that there are other key issues that also need addressing. For example, the high cost of electric power in this province is a burden on both consumers and the business community. And then there's manufacturing. What are we going to do about the manufacturing sector? Canada-wide, over the past decade plus, we've lost about 500,000 jobs in manufacturing, and the bulk of those job losses have been in Ontario. And I'm particularly concerned about whether we're going to get our share of new investment from the motor vehicle side of things. So these are other issues that need addressing, and it sets the stage for a very interesting battleground in the next provincial election, whenever that comes. Because the Liberals have shifted slightly left to occupy ground, usually taken over by the NDP, and there's a bigger divide with the Conservatives under Mr. Hudak, Tim Hudak. The Conservatives are proposing that there be actual cuts to spending and jobs in the public sector, and they want to bring in right-to-work legislation similar to what is in place now in Illinois and Indiana. And that'll reduce the presence of unions, and some estimates are that it might lower labor costs by as much as 10%. Now, my final comment is that for the manufacturing sector, perhaps the more important news came out of Ottawa last week as opposed to Toronto, because Mr. Stephen Poloz has been appointed the governor of the Bank of Canada to replace Mark Carney. Mr. Carney, in his recent statements, is talking about a possible bias upwards in interest rates. Mr. Poloz is the former head of the Export Development Corporation, and he knows what it takes to sell Canadian goods in foreign markets. And I'm speculating here, but I would suggest that he may be more comfortable with a lower valued Canadian dollar than Mr. Carney, which would mean that his take on interest rates would be that they should stay flat, maybe even decline somewhat, and at the very least that they should stay low for longer.